Hello and welcome to another edition of Dis After Dark. I am Nick.
I'm Paul D.
I'm Craig Lucas.
And it is just the three of us tonight. We have Mr. P-Dubs, as I only call him, and Chris are not available tonight. The talented Mr. Ripley is suffering a slip disc, I believe.
Oh, fantastic.
I think, which is always nice to hear. But it doesn't matter because although there's only three of us in the Mouse's Head tonight, we do have an amazing guest. And people always complain on this show that, we tend to have, either Disney people on, surprisingly, or Disney podcasters on. So we've gone a little bit out of the box with this one. So, Mr. Guest, can you please reveal yourself?
Hi, this is Rob from Libsyn, and I also host Today in iOS podcast and co-host the Feed podcast and Podcast 411.
So none of you host more podcasts than even me, but on top of that as well, none of them have a Disney connection, by name at least anyway. So thank you very much for joining us. A pleasure to have you. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with our show, but the way that we kick things off is, as we're in a pub, is by having a drink. So who wants to go first?
I'll go. I've got a Copperberg cider, and it's a new flavour on me. It's an elderflower and lime, and the lime is in honour of Florida. So cheers, guys.
When you say a new flavour on you, have you already poured it over yourself, or?
Not yet, but that seems like a waste. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pour it inside myself.
Give it time. Mr. Lucas.
Unfortunately, I'm drinking a good English British cup of tea.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
English Pavilion, of course.
Yes.
Or UK Pavilion. Sorry, not English Pavilion. Rob, what about yourself?
I am just with a smart water, so not just bottle of water. Sorry, it's really boring. Sorry,
I've got to
guys.
say, what's disappointing about smart water is I bought some for my wife, and it didn't improve her intelligence at all. So she didn't like it when I told her that's the reason why I bought it, surprisingly. But if anyone follows me on social media and some of the stuff that she comes out with, then you can understand why I thought it was worth a try at least. I found something new in the alcohol section today. It's a drink that I've had previously, but like with Mr. Dolan's drink, it's a new flavour. So I've got a mango and passion fruit Pimm's cider cup. So there you go.
That sounds like a bit of a girly drink there.
Very girly. I mean, to be honest, I think the reason for...
Says the man drinking tea.
Touche.
I don't know if it's the same for Mr. Dolan, but certainly with myself today, because we've had some pretty good weather, I didn't want anything too heavy, really. I got kicked about last week with some stouts. I'm not really... don't really like my stout, I've got to be honest. So I did want something a little bit girly, yeah. A little bit soft on the inside. Let me just try it. Hang on. There's a little bit of Pimm's in there.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a Pimm's afterkick, but you can definitely taste that fruit. Anyway, so that's us and what we're drinking. So, of course, you can always let us know yourself, dear listener, what you're drinking by... contact us on our website, which is www.disafterdark.com, or you could also email us at podcast@disafterdark.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at Dis After Dark, and on Facebook at facebook.com/DisAfterDark.
Pinterest, Bebo, Teddy Texts,
disafterdark.blogspot.co.uk is another one.
That one as well, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, you may have gathered that Rob is a bit of royalty, I would like to say, in the podcast world. I mean, you are a big cheese, would you not say yourself?
I've been around a while. I've been doing this since
I didn't mean like
2004.
that. Didn't mean like by age. So, at 2012, did you say?
2004 was my first
2004?
podcast.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, if you said 2012, we'd only I think we've been going back a year at that point, so it wasn't too bad. But 2004, I've got to be honest, I'd only just started listening to podcasts around about that time myself, I think, maybe 2005 or so. So I was kind of there early doors as well, but only as a listener rather than a contributor, which it took me a long time to become. So yeah, I suppose if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about yourself and how you got involved, really.
I really got into podcasting in late 2004 because I was just looking for a hobby. I just finished my MBA at UConn, and I was working, and I was just looking for something to fill up some free time while I traveled, and I started listening to podcasts, and I said, well, I want to be a podcaster, and it seemed like a good hobby to get into, and the hobby became an addiction, became a career.
Wow.
So the rest they say is history. But yeah, I've been doing podcasting full time since April 2005.
Wow, full time. We can only dream of that.
I started listening to Rob's podcast Today in iOS about at the time of the iPhone 4 coming out. I was looking for information on apps and stuff, and he's been ever present ever since. So I'm honoured to be sitting with you here tonight, Rob. I'm buzzing.
Yeah, and in fact, funny enough, I'm actually going to be handing the show over to Craig in a minute just for that reason, actually, because I think he's got a lot more focus and foresight on this than even I have. I like to consider myself a little bit of an expert, but yeah, as Craig has said, he's been listening to you for a very long time, and in fact, I mean, Craig, you often have said to us individually and as the podcast itself about listening to various podcasts at different times to pick up tips and to hear other people do things. But your podcast is one that he always alerts us to as one to listen to.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I
That's,
mean,
that.
Go on, sorry.
As I was going to say, that's as a podcaster, that's what you always want to hear, is that your listeners are recommending your show, because that's how shows grow, is from the listeners, from the audience.
Yeah, I mean, several weeks ago you put a shout out on Today in iOS that you were going to Walt Disney World, and you were after some tips for apps and stuff. So I thought, I can't pass up this opportunity. We've got to try and book it on. So just be really interesting to hear what you...
It wound up, the one that I used the most was the official Disney app, at the park. So you could see what the wait times were on the rides while you're in the park. And that was important. So, okay, where are we going to go next? And we'd look and say, okay, this one's got a 60-minute wait, and this one's got 15, over to the one that's got 15. And so the Disney World app, that was the one ultimately that I wound up using the most. Now, I wish I had set it up correctly beforehand, so that I could have used it to get the fast passes from it. But it was a strange situation where I went with it was a tri-generation. My parents, myself, my family, and my kids. So it was 3 generations there at it, and my parents had done the initial setup, so I couldn't get the right email in there, and never was able to get it quite right registered to do the fast passes. She didn't give me the right information. So I learned a lesson. Next time I take over all the technical stuff. I still let my mom do it.
I think what Disney are doing, they're taking away the spontaneity of the whole experience now. So if you're staying on property or if you're staying off property, you can book dining reservations 180 days out. Then you can do fast passes 60 days out. And if you don't know that, you literally could be walking around Walt Disney World blind almost.
Yeah, we didn't book the restaurants. We didn't book the trip until about 90 days, less than 90 days out. And by the time we booked it, all the good restaurants, most of it was taken, or the time that we wanted were taken. So it was tough to find restaurants from that perspective. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely learned valuable lesson in, one, figure out exactly where you want to go the 5 days, because we were there for 5 days. Know exactly which parks you want to be in, because we only did fast passes for the first 3 days, because we weren't sure what we were going to do on the 4th and 5th day. And because of that, not having the fast passes on the Thursday, when we went and tried to find fast passes, I think the fast passes that we got for Magic Kingdom on that third day were Pirates of the Caribbean, It's a Small World, and the Barnstormer. And the great quote from my son, who's 10, is, we're going through It's a Small World. Now I was going to make them go through It's a Small World, regardless if we had a fast pass or not. He turns to my wife and he goes, "We wasted a fast pass on this?"
Yeah, and the Barnstormer, yeah.
Yeah, and then the last day we went to Animal Kingdom the last day, and we had no fast passes, and so we just had to go right away and run over, to Adventure Everest and try Expedition Everest, excuse me, and try to get on the line, and we waited on that line, so it wasn't too bad. So yeah, it was. We definitely learned something with how the fast passes work now, and in hindsight, and next time we're going to plan well out over, well beyond 6 months ahead of time.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, for the dining, we've been trying to book dining for October this week, and it's driving me crazy because normally when you get to 180 days, you can book your first 10 days of your stay, and this time we haven't booked the hotel yet, so we don't have a reservation, which means each day I've got to go on and book the restaurants, and all the good restaurants have gone by the time. Even if you're there at 11 a.m. UK time when it opens, the good restaurants have gone. I mean, you really have got to book this stuff way in advance.
It's one of those things that as Craig alluded to about the spontaneity of it, I mean, it's one of the things that I definitely lament about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think at times you can still get walk-ups because not a lot of people, not everybody turns up for their advanced dining reservation. But it makes the whole thing, a little bit more sort of chancy, a little bit more iffy as to whether you can actually get the restaurant that you want when you want it.
Yeah, there were a few restaurants we didn't get that we wanted, but and we were at was it Wednesday? We were at Hollywood Studios, and we wound up being in the Primetime Cafe, and
fantastic.
And the timing wasn't all that right, and we wound up getting there a little bit early because of how the day ended, there was and then on top of that, the time they had us for, we got there like half an hour early, and it was a half an hour beyond our time, so we were there an hour. So picture sitting there for an hour with an 8 and a 10-year-old. So now they're antsy, and then the food wasn't all that good. And I remember my 8-year-old, as we're walking out the door, the person said to him, "How was it?" And my 8-year-old, or 7, he looks up there, and goes, if this restaurant was where I lived, you'd be out of business in 2 days." He'd said it point blank to her, just straight like that, and her face just dropped. And it was just like, just scoot him out the door. Come on, let's go.
Oh well. and then he said, "And we wasted a fast pass on It's a Small World."
Yeah. Yeah. So it was. Other than that, the food was good. But yeah, the 50s Primetime Cafe, I wouldn't. It wasn't that good. And how can you have an authentic, or you're trying to make a restaurant look like it's authentic, and then have one of the items on the restaurant menu says sustainable fish? Okay. If you're going to be in the 50s and you're trying to make everything seem like it's the 50s, sustainable, to me, if you were in the 50s, that meant all you can eat.
Yeah, it's definitely not a 50s concept.
No.
I think as well, with all the extra theming they put in on the restaurants, people don't rush their food. So, like you said, you've got your time booked, and you get there half an hour early, but then you're waiting half an hour past. It's because Disney are too polite in hurrying people along, so people sit at the tables and just people watch. Mm-hmm. You go in and order a cupcake and a drink and sit there for 2 hours, and then people like yourself are stuck then. Mm-hmm. We see that an awful lot when we go there. But did you have any? Was the server any good? Did you have any attitude off them? Because they give you attitude in that.
Oh yeah. Elbows off the table, yeah. So they tried to stay in character on that. But yeah, no, the service was fine. It was just that was the only of the restaurants I would say where the food wasn't the best, or that wasn't as good as I had hoped. But the rest of the restaurants were fine, and we did. I think a Tuesday night we did the luau at the Polynesian. So we were at Epcot Center during the day, and then took the monorail back over to the Polynesian to do the luau. And Thursday night we did the Hoop-de-Doo review.
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, I had done that when I was younger as a kid, and I remember that because I was the kid they picked to go up on stage as the sheriff back when I was a kid. But my kids didn't get picked this time, and they were all bummed because my mom was talking about it all day long. Oh, your dad was picked, your dad. So they're thinking, oh, we'll get picked. One of us will get picked, and they didn't. Like wah wah wah. But they had fun. They had fun, just singing along, and that's a good. It's a good event. I mean, I can remember it from when I was a kid, and my kids enjoyed it.
So, Rob, can I ask you? I mean, it's not been particularly clear. Was this like your first trip to Walt Disney World, or like?
So this was my fourth trip. So I went when I was 8 and 10, and then 16 or 17. 16, just before I turned 17, and that with my parents, and then I hadn't been back since that. So I hadn't been back since I was 16, and now I'm 49, and this was the first time with my kids got to go, but my wife had gone once when she was younger too. So this was her second time.
And I mean, because the thing. It's hard for me to know really because I've been twice and both times were just a few years apart, and in that I think it was a 3-year gap. Quite a bit had changed in the parks as well as Universal and SeaWorld and places like that as well. So for you to have had such a large gap, it must have been like going to a different world. Pardon the pun.
Well, in some ways it was, in some ways it wasn't. I mean, when I went when I was younger, like the first time, there was no Epcot Center, and we it was just Magic Kingdom basically, and then when I went back as a teenager, then there was Epcot Center had just opened, and there was also I guess the Animal Kingdom, or there was some other place I remember we went to as well. But yeah, there was definitely no Hollywood. And back then the hotels were the Contemporary and the Polynesian, and now there's all these other hotels and in different places. We wound up staying at the Riverside and in Port Orleans area. In hindsight, the next time we do it, we'll probably do Polynesian or Contemporary, just so that or the other resort one. The ones that are on the monorail, just so that we can go over to Disney at night, because we never got over to Disney at night to see the fireworks because the kids, we got out so early in the mornings each morning, the kids were absolutely exhausted by the nighttime. So they weren't up to going out at night, they wanted to be in the pool, and they played in the pool. That was the only thing they wanted to do at night, was just, let's go swim in the pool. Whereas if we were on one of the ones near the monorail, we could jump on the monorail, swing on over to Disney, at 9 at night, watch some fireworks, and then kind of swing back to the hotel.
That's a lovely pipe dream to have, Rob. It doesn't happen in reality.
Yes.
Well,
in theory, it could.
Yeah. Oh no. In an ideal world, I don't think Disney have figured out how to get the queue times down to that just right yet. But yeah, it's funny because. I think the difference between, I don't want to say like America, that's generalising, but definitely in our circumstances, if we've gone there, because obviously for us it's quite a way to travel as well, and certainly if my kids turn around to me and said, "Oh, Dad, I'm a bit tired, I don't want to go and see the fireworks," I'll be like, "Do you know how much this trip has cost me? Get your arse over there. Don't worry about sleep. Sleep's for later on." Different viewpoints. Yours is a much more sensible one.
Yeah, and again, too, my mom and dad were in their 70s, so we weren't pushing people too hard either.
Yeah.
So we had kids that were crashing and parents that needed didn't want to push too much either. So again, next time we'll try to stay closer. I realize it's different, quite a difference in price when you stay around the monorail versus staying out at the outlying parks.
It is, but it's well worth it as well, because you can walk to a lot of the places, and you can come back in the afternoon and have naps and stuff, and then go back in the evening. But again, Disney doesn't have any downtime anymore. It doesn't have any out of season. It seems to be busy all year round now.
Yeah, I mean, we went first week of April. We thought, okay, that would be a little bit quieter. And I remember we were at Epcot Center on Tuesday, and we were at the Spaceship Earth. And if you come out, and there's that area where you can do little experiments and stuff. And one of them is where you get your pictures taken. And it says you put in where you're from, and you can look up on the map, and you can tell which states had off for school.
Yeah.
Because you see like Michigan, all these dots from Michigan, all these dots from Kentucky, all these dots from Georgia. And we just happened to time it where we were there a week when Georgia was out of school. So everybody drove down from Georgia, which is an easy drive to go to Disney World. So that, in hindsight, next time we're going to look and go when at least schools that are driving distance from Disney World aren't out.
Yeah.
I mean, we tend to go the last 2 weeks in August, which is unbelievably hot, unbelievably humid. But the American schools all start going back to school the last 2 weeks in August. So the parks towards the end of the holiday, the parks are starting to quieten off a little bit. But you've just got to put up with the thunderstorms and the rain. But
yeah, we got lucky. 5 days there, not a drop of rain.
Wow.
During the day. There was one night there was a little bit of rain in it, like between 1 or 2 in the morning, and that was it. So, but during the days, 5 days sun, and not too hot. So we had really good weather. So we were lucky in that aspect.
What was the boys' favorite rides?
I think everybody's favorite ride was Test Track at Epcot Center. I think that was number one. For everyone. Number 2 for the boys was Star Tours, and then 7D Mine Train. They both liked both of those quite a bit. I get motion sick. My wife gets motion sick. We did Star Tours, the first thing out. Yeah, and we spent the rest of the morning going, oh, no snacks, no. No lunch.
I get like that on the teacups. I hate spinny things.
I go green on the teacups, green on Mission Space, green on Star Tours.
Yeah, we did Mission Space green, and at the end I was just like, crash this thing into the planet already.
Just because of all the warnings, I refuse to do. It's the red version, isn't it? That's the extreme version.
Yeah, orange team.
Orange. Yeah. I was like, no thanks. I didn't actually find Spaceship. I didn't find Mission Space to be that bad actually. On the tame side, but I do think if I'd gone for the orange side, I probably would be ruining the day for making that decision.
It's strange though, because I mean, like I said, I'm terrible on the teacups. Everything else I'm okay. So I thought I might have a problem with Mission Space, but I was fine. It's very clever. You don't feel like you're spinning around. The sort of sensation you get. Maybe you don't want to think about it too much. I think if you start thinking about it, you realize you're spinning around, and that might set you off. But no, I didn't think there was a huge difference between green and orange.
Okay.
A little bit more intense on the G-forces.
Yeah.
But not on the spinny side of things.
So Rob, one thing I wanted to kind of pick up there that you said was you mentioned the 7D Mine Train. Now, is that because of the cartoon that you said that the kind of
it's 7 Dwarves Mine Train. It's just
Seven.
Just because 7 Dwarves Mine Train sit in the 7Ds. Yeah, I guess because that's just what the kids always called it when we were there.
It sounds cooler actually when you say it like that.
But it's quite weird because I mean there was quite a lot of hype about that cartoon, but certainly in the UK, I mean it's shown on the Disney Channel in the UK. But it doesn't seem to have really been that successful over here. I've got no idea how it's fared in America, but
my kids like the cartoon, so so that was when they just call it the whole time we were there. I want to do 7D Mine Train again. So we had that fast pass. That was one of ones we fast passed the first day, because we got there on Monday around 11, 12-ish, right around noon. And that was one of the ones on the fast pass, and I think Space Mountain and I think it was Haunted Mansion, I think, were the ones we did fast passes on that first day.
The Haunted Mansion, that's a good segue for our first advert of the night. It's for Scare Zone. I think it's the only Halloween Horror Nights podcast worth listening to. They've just done a Friday the 13th special, and it's done by Logan, Chris and Scott. Chris is our very own Chris, Talents Mr. Ripley. They travel through time on this special holiday, and it doesn't come round that often. Today is Friday the 13th, and we are going to party. We discuss the history of Jason at Halloween Horror Nights, and we have some very special guests. So go and search Scare Zone Halloween Horror Nights podcasts on all the popular podcast apps. I prefer the Apple podcast app of choice, so go and search them out. Thank you.
I have a lot of problems with that app, I've got to be honest.
Oh.
It's the one I use as well. And this actually might be a good time to bring it up, because I don't know if I'm the only person that listens to podcasts using that app here, but what I find is that sometimes it will, like a podcast I'm listening to, will just stop playing, not switch off. So if I press like play on my remote, or if I flick up the bar from the bottom and press play, the podcast will resume, but it just stops midway through a show that I've downloaded as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a network thing.
Mm-hmm. It can be if your headsets, if you have the earbuds plugged in and they're a little loose, it'll cause it. Sometimes that'll happen, and sometimes it just crashes.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's a headset issue. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I use the podcast app for the most part, for the fact that you can tell Siri to jump back ahead 3 minutes or jump back 5 minutes, or you can have Siri control it. That's why I like the podcast app. But then I also use Overcast. So that I think Overcast is the best third-party app out there made by anyone, and it has more features than any other version.
I do love Overcast, but I always feel like I'm cheating on Apple. I'm playing away from home when I go to Overcast.
Oh, Apple doesn't care. As long as you're listening to podcasts, they're happy.
Yeah, especially on one of their devices, even happier.
Mm-hmm. So. Yes.
Fair enough. So we talked about the things that you did do. Was there anything that, because you was only there for 5 days, and I don't know if you know this about a lot of people that go from the UK, we would probably go to Florida for anywhere between a minimum of 7 days, normally up to about 21 days. I'd say the average is the 2-week mark of 14 days. Obviously our travel time is normally considerably more, and we've got a time zone difference as well, but as you were just there for 5 days, I imagine there are things that you weren't able to either get fast passes for or just run out of time to see.
Well, yeah, there was a few things. Like, unfortunately, Soarin' at Epcot Center was closed for the month of April.
Yes,
they were doing work, so we didn't get to do that, which I was wanting to do. And then we didn't do anything at night, like I said. So we missed out on any of the nighttime activity, and only got like part of the way around Epcot Center World. So there were definitely things that we would have liked to have gotten to. The biggest thing I would say that we didn't get to do was the Jedi training for the boys. We got there too late to the park. We got there when it opened. Silly us. We should have gotten there a half an hour before it was scheduled to open, because that's when they actually let some people in. And that day, and everyone got to online, and by the time we got there, it was too late to even get them signed up to do the Jedi training that day.
Yes.
So I did. Yeah. So I think in next time we'll get to the park as early. We'll get there at least a half an hour, 45 minutes early to Hollywood, and so that we can get them signed up for that.
Cool. Oh.
2 years ago when we went, on our first day, because of the jet lag, we were up for 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were basically outside the Magic Kingdom for about 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was already crowds gathering at that point, and we missed getting picked to be family of the day by about 2 minutes.
Oh.
And you come in on the train for rope drop and stuff like that. I don't know if you get any perks for the rest of the day, but we were so close. So that's the time you've got to be ridiculous. 7 o'clock in the morning, park doesn't open till 9.
Mm-hmm. And it was tough, having to get up even that early for the kids, because when you have the kids, getting them, you have to get up early, then have food and then get and then go wait for the bus, and then for the bus to come around finally, and then to get you there. So that's another reason why, again, if we do this, staying at one of the parks on the monorail, it's going to save you a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got to go back now, haven't you?
The kids are already like, when are we going back? When are we going back? I'm like, we'll see. I was hoping that the Hollywood park was going to have the new Disney area open, but as near as I can tell, that's not going to be for a few more years. So we'll probably go back once before that opens, and then I'm sure once again after it opens.
Now, I don't know, Rob, how you obviously plan this trip, because there's so many avenues of doing so. But if you are already considering another trip at some point, may I recommend our second sponsor on tonight's show, which is our friend Wendy at Magical Journeys. If you want to contact Wendy and mention that you heard this advert through Dis After Dark, you'll get $25 off your deposit with any trip package, and she'll be there to get those reservations for you. So the things you mentioned tonight, about trying to book things in advance, and you have got that small window of doing so, let Wendy be the person to do that. And you can find her at wpmagicjourneys.com, on Twitter at wpmagicjourneys. There you go.
And if you're a guest on the show, you might get $50 off.
Look, it's not for us to say.
It's not for us to say, but
I'm sure Wendy would try and accommodate if possible. She seems to be that kind of person.
She's gorgeous. We love her.
Yeah, she is. Sorry about a shameless plug. We're all about segues in this show, if you hadn't gathered. But yeah, so going back to your day job, I suppose, and podcasting, because it's quite a funny one about how this podcast got started, because the guy who I started this show with is still behind the scenes, but we haven't seen him for quite a while now, Craig, have we?
I think he's in prison, to be honest. We're not sure.
Possibly in a gulag or something.
I think he's on deep undercover.
Well, it could be that as well. It's one of the two, I'm sure. But we started it because we listened to another UK Disney podcast. At the time, I don't think there was that many. Now I think we're one of about 600. But it was a competition they were running about trying to find a new co-host, and we were unsuccessful in our applications there, and decided to not take the template, but take the idea of doing a Disney podcast, and our spin on that was to do a more adult Disney podcast, because everything to do with Disney is a little bit twee. And how magical everything is, and Disney obviously is magical, and we wouldn't spend time doing a podcast about Disney if we didn't like it. But at the same time, it's not all pixie dust, and sometimes there are things that they do that you don't agree with, or things that you don't feel the same way about. So that was our reasoning for starting our little podcast, which has grown, and we've got new co-hosts on it, and expand our audience over time. But if somebody is listening to this and thinks, I want to get involved in a podcast, whether it's a Disney one or another type of podcast, what would be your kind of top tips for doing so?
Well, I always say you're better off, if a topic like this one, you're better off with co-hosts than trying to do it solo. A solo show is a lot more work than a show with co-hosts, because if you're doing a solo show, I do solo show, and I do one where I do interviews and I do a co-host, and the solo show requires you to do a lot of pre-scripting and research and everything else, because it's just you. Whereas when you have co-hosts, you can play off the people. And one of the best suggestions for a co-host, if you're gonna start it, first off, make sure you're the one that registers the show. You're the one that submits it to iTunes, so that you keep control of the show if you're starting it, if you're going to be the primary person. Don't let your co-host, if you're not sure who they are, register it. And if that person all of a sudden flakes on you one day, you can lose control of the show. And then when you do pick a co-host, pick somebody that you feel comfortable talking with, and get on Skype with them and talk with them about your experiences and see if you guys gel. Or not. A lot of times people will do couple casts where they're dating and they'll start a podcast. And that usually means the podcast lasts until they get married and have kids, or until they break up. So, either way, the days are numbered when you do a couple cast.
It sounds a little bit like you know the history of this podcast quite well, because that's exactly how me and Paul started, to be honest. No, but funny enough, actually, the first time so Paul reached out to me. When I was unsuccessful, I'd got to like the final 3 people for this competition, and he said to me about, I'm thinking about doing my own show. Do you want to join in, basically? So we didn't know each other, we hadn't spoken at that point, and so what happened was we arranged to have a call on Skype, like you said, and we was chatting for about 5-10 minutes, and it was quite clear that we had a bit of a rapport going. So he said, well, why don't we just try and record it and see how that goes? And so the first episode of this podcast was actually our first ever conversation. So it wasn't planned to be that way. It was just a way to kind of get to know each other, but it turned out that was actually quite a good way to start the podcast, because it felt quite natural.
And the beauty of podcasting is there is no barrier to entry. I mean, it's just a matter of signing up for an account, and if you know how to record, you're good to go. If you're not sure to even how to record, there's free tutorials out there. If you go into iTunes and search for Podcast 101, I have a free iBook in podcast in iTunes about how to podcast, and that'll get you started. At zip, nothing, no cost to you. Just search for Podcast 101 in iTunes, and you'll find a free iBook on how to do it. So it really, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get going. A Yeti mic is what you hear me talking on right now. It's $99 roughly to $125 depending on where you get it. It's from Blue, the Yeti mic. But there's other good mics, ATR 2100, which is $65. And you don't want to spend a lot of money. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people I've heard is they go and they look at some of these quote-unquote experts, what they're recommending for their startup package, and it's like $1,500 or something like that. And it's like, that's crazy. You don't have to spend that. If you spend more than $150 on a mic, you've wasted money you could spend at Disney World.
It's a good point. I've got a friend who I said to him, he runs a quite popular page on Facebook about a football team that we support. And I said to him, like, how comes, because they do a lot of interviews, video interviews, which they then upload onto YouTube. And I said to him, have you ever thought about podcasts? Because he's mentioned to me about watching, if I've watched them, and sometimes they're like 25 minutes to an hour long. And I don't always have time to sit there watching something, but I do have that time to listen to it. And he said, we looked into it and we was told it was going to be about, £5,000 to start up.
Oh.
I was like,
oh no. Yeah, so whoever told him that's craziness.
Yeah, I don't know if that was because that was what they were going to charge him to do so. But I was like, we're very simple on this podcast. We use Skype. I think a lot of us now have USB headsets with a mic.
Yeah.
You use for like Skype or Skype for Business or a Link or something like that. And that's what we kind of use. And I think the quality's like good. I mean, it's not the best sounding podcast out there, but we're not running things through like a sound desk or anything like that either. So I think if you've got that kind of setup and you've got a mixer desk and things like that, then it's a little bit different. But when you're just kind of using a power Skype's only as good as your internet connection. and no $100 mic is going to make that better if your internet connection is really poor.
Right. And people will literally spend over $1,000 on a mic, and then they encode the file down to MP3 format at 64 kilobits per second. It's like, why did you spend all the money on the mic? You didn't need to. And then people are listening through their earbuds anyway, driving in the car to work. So, as long as you've got decent quality, it's not making people's ears bleed for the audio quality, and you've got good content. That's the magic right there. Yeah. Good content, something people want to listen to.
Good regular content, and it's inexpensive. I mean, we're on Skype. I think Nick's using whatever free software he's using to record, and our Libsyn account is $20 a month, and it's perfect. The sponsorships cover that. So I used my Apple earbuds for up until about 3 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not. It doesn't have to be the most expensive thing. And the thing is, as well, if you find that over time, like say, like we've only recently had sponsorship. We hadn't really reached out before because we didn't seem we was big enough to contact the likes of Audible or things like that you hear on most popular podcasts. So we kind of did our own kind of grassroots campaign and managed to get sponsorship that way. But now we've got that money, as Craig says, to invest in that. Then we can start thinking about, well, do we want to get some more equipment? Do we want to try and improve the sound? But with that, as you say, comes different things, because if you're still going to mix it down to the same audio quality you've got now, those extra factors are going to be a waste.
I think you could use the money to find. I was going to say, I would think the money's better spent finding non-girly drinks for you to have.
Okay, all right, Mister.
He's not wrong, though, is he?
He's definitely not wrong. I mean, it's nice this, but I mean, one bottle's enough.
Yeah, I'm drinking this. I'm drinking this elderflower, and it's like my granny's old bath soap water or whatever. It's not good. Not drinking that again.
No. So, if somebody because I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, Craig, we've said it before, but I mean, Craig has kind of been our driver. Sometimes when we've not been pushing ourselves as hard as we could have done, or we've not been doing content quite as frequently as we should have been doing, he's kind of driven that. And he kind of got us really involved with Libsyn. For people that are listening to this and think, because I think that the other thing as well is sometimes we do have people that listen and think they'd probably like to do it, but I'm not sure where to start. So obviously your iBook is a good place to go. But if they've done that and they've now gone, okay, well I can see what I need to do, and it sounds quite simple for me to set up a podcast. How do I get involved with Libsyn?
If they have questions, they can email me. I'm really approachable. My email is Rob, as in Robert, ROB, @Libsyn, and that's LIBSYN.com. So Rob @Libsyn.com, and Libsyn stands for Liberated Syndication, in case people are wondering.
I did actually. I never thought about looking into it because I didn't know if I'd find that answer. But that's interesting. Okay.
And people, I listen to the feed, and people wind up their podcasts quite regularly because they're not getting the figures that they expect. What sort of figures is the average for a run-of-the-mill podcast?
The median number. So when we look at shows, what the median, like half the episodes that are released, and this is when episodes are 30 to 60 days old, half the episodes that are released on our network are getting 156, 160 downloads roughly, or less, and half are getting more than 160 downloads. It's not as big as many people think. And the average, when you actually average, because we have a lot of big shows that host at Libsyn, the average is around 2,000. It's always been steady right at 2,000, and last month it was actually 2,000 and 2,000.4. So I mean, it was right on the average. And a lot of people exaggerate what their numbers are. I joke, that most podcasters would rather tell you the truth of their member length than they actually would their download numbers.
Well, I don't know if you know this about us, and again, this was a Craig idea as well. When we first reached out for sponsorship, one thing that we definitely found within our community, our kind of Disney-fied or theme park UK community, is you would speak to other podcasters because, well, we would because we're friendly, but you'd like say to people like, oh, how's your show doing? And as soon as you say that, it does turn into a bit of a dick measuring contest where people don't want to be too coy on things, too keen on things. So they'll say, "Oh yeah, 10,000 downloads the last episode." You're like thinking, "Oh blimey, well that's a lot more." But we wanted to be quite transparent when we started this with getting sponsorship in being transparent. And look, this is where we are. And I actually think it helped because I remember the show that we did that. I think it was I can't remember now, Craig, if the show had been out for a week or 2 weeks at that point when we'd announced the figures. But the figures for that show were 666. I remember that for obvious reasons. But we've kind of more than doubled that since that point. On average.
Nice.
So we obviously completely over the moon, but I think we've been quite, we've actually shown our figures as well, for that reason. But no one else has kind of we've challenged people, haven't we? In a friendly way of we're doing this. Why don't you? Show how your show's doing, because I don't see the need of hiding behind things, but there definitely seems to be a stigma around it.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough I get to see the numbers. We have over 30,000 shows that host with us. We deliver over 25% of all the downloads that come through iTunes.
Wow.
So I get a good idea of what the numbers are for shows, and I'll see people on social media talking about their numbers, and sometimes they're given numbers that are 10x what their show really is doing. Yeah, and that's I just have to bite my tongue and not say anything.
Well, I suppose for sponsorship purposes, I can get that, but I'd much rather be honest about things. When we first started the show, we turned around and said that if we only had 10 people listening, that would be 9 more than we was expecting, because we thought it might be quite niche. And we were doing it for ourselves, and we was doing it for fun. And it's only been, as time's kind of gone, and we've had more people involved, and we've had kind of a different attitude to things, to really try and better ourselves, but not at the expense of forgetting our roots, if that makes sense. Like we haven't changed the format just to make sure that we're getting that golden number.
Right. I mean, when you get over 200, you're already now better than half the shows out there. And you get over 500, that guarantees you're beyond friends, family, relatives. Now you're out and you've broken out and you're gathering up. Most of those people are that are listening are people that didn't know you beforehand.
Yeah.
And that's beauty when you're in that number where you're at now, and your show is successful. I mean, I consider that you've done very well. You've got a successful show and you're growing an audience, and your audience is telling their friends, and that's where your show can then start to really pick up.
Based on what Rob said, though, I think he's given us another idea for boosting our numbers. If we publish our member statistics as well, I think we could really tap into the comedy market.
Oh, I definitely could.
Oh yeah, give people a good laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. As Mr. Boniface would say. Well, that's good. You know what? That's actually really been good to hear, Rob. Actually, because you do sit there sometimes and look at your figures and think, some shows you kind of anticipate a bit of a spike in, because someone's on there, you're talking about a certain subject, and it doesn't make as much of an impact as you expect to. And other times, shows surprise you, and they do. And I sit there sometimes. Craig shares the numbers with us, and I think, what is it we need to do? Why are people not enjoying it? Because you do also want to make sure that, as much as we're having fun, and I think that's very key, you want to make sure the listeners enjoying it as well, because you're not just making it for yourselves, you're making it for people to consume. But to hear that about figures is great. If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to reveal figures, obviously, but what is one of your top downloaded podcasts, would you say? Or can you not say that?
Well, no. I mean that hosts on Libsyn overall. Yeah, Hardcore History with Dan Carlin, and he gets over 4 million downloads an episode.
Wow.
And that's one of the biggest ones in the world. So I mean, but we have a lot of. Libsyn hosts 35% of the top 200 shows on iTunes. So we also host shows from Joe Rogan, The Nerdist, HBO's podcast, Dave Ramsey. There's just a ton of really big names. Welcome to the Night Vale, WTF with Mark Maron.
Wasn't Mark Maron the one who had the president on about 3 months ago?
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah,
Obama,
he had President Obama on last year in July, I think it was, or late June. And in the first 48 hours, he did over 1 million downloads. And
didn't you get a shout out on that episode as well?
Yes, yeah. He gave a shout out to me. So
Fantastic.
that was nice. It was nice because I had my kids listening to the episode and they were listening, and I didn't know the shout out was coming. And then here they are listening to the president on the podcast, and then there's a shout out to their dad on that podcast. So I felt like big guy, it was kind of cool.
That's fantastic.
It was a great episode as well. I listened to that. I listen to Mark Maron quite often. I do sometimes where I don't commute as much as I used, so I do have to be a little bit choosy sometimes on his shows. They're normally very interesting, to be completely honest, even with people that you don't know. But I do try now and go, right, how much do I know of this person? Have I heard them before? If not, I might listen to it, and if not. But he's a great example of a podcaster. And I mean, I think what's interesting about Mark's show as well is the fact that it starts off as a solo show. So every episode is him just talking, and he rambles on, and he'll go completely off point, and then just kind of bring it flying back round just for the start of the interview. But that bit captivates me as well. I can't skip it.
Is that what you base your hosting skills on, Nick?
No, because he's talented and funny. I'm just crap, basically. But we have audiences, so somebody out there likes me, I'm sure. I've just got to find them. But well, that's good. And but I think, I'm hoping that people will listen to this. I'm hoping people will listen to this and get the interest to start their own podcast. I'd rather they didn't do it based on what we do. But if it gets you going on a podcast,
do it on a subject. Yeah, here's what my best advice for you is: don't do a podcast on what you think people want to listen to. Do a podcast on what you want to listen to. There is a podcast on professional chameleon raising. There is a podcast on tree climbing association. There are podcasts on a lot of things. Do the podcast you want to listen to yourself. You might listen to Disney podcasts, but maybe you have another interest. Maybe you're a big Krista Berg fan. Do a Krista Berg podcast. Whatever it is that really interests you, do a podcast on that.
I'm starting to think Rob is able to access more information about me than he's letting on, because he seems to know a lot about my interests. I've learned tonight. Go on, Greg,
what about iTunes reviews, Rob? How much does that help? Because that's something that we don't really push that hard. We like them when we get them, but it's not something that we really try.
I'll say this to your audience. Yeah, to your audience right now, folks, if you like the show, the nicest thing you can do to them is go into iTunes and rate their show. Give them a 5-star rating and put a nice little review in there of their show. That really does help. It helps them in the category they're in the what's hot in that category. So, giving them a nice rating, it just makes all the work they do worthwhile. I know as a podcaster, whenever I see a review come in, it really makes the hard work, because it is work to do this and get time. That helping most of you that are listening to this commute to work or at work, past the day, whatever it is, when you're listening to this, just next time you get a chance, go into iTunes and rate and review their show. Give them a nice rating.
Yeah, great.
And also, the second best thing you can probably do is look at our Amazon wish lists and just send the stuff up there. But we'll settle for the first one.
Oh yeah, you could send them first class tickets to go to Disney World. If you really want to.
For research purposes. Yeah, for research purposes only, of course.
Well, actually, I think at the moment, guys, I don't know about you, just to go off topic a little bit, 'cause, I do appreciate that it's been very podcast heavy, which I think should be a real breath of fresh air for our listeners because it's something completely new. But at the same time, just to kind of end the show, you mentioned about flying to Disney World. I personally think at the moment, based on what I've seen thus far, I think I'd like to get on a plane to Shanghai. Have you
Well,
guys?
send them first class tickets to Shanghai, but you got to make sure you get your visa.
And
you need that to get
clean
into
air
China.
mask, a clean air mask as well. Yeah, but we need a visa to get into America. See,
that's
I'm
true.
I'm actually not allowed. Sorry, right, hang on. I'll clarify this. At the moment, until I go and make an appointment in the American embassy, every time I land in America, I get taken off to a room and somebody puts the rubber glove on. It doesn't go much further than that. They kind of realise that it's okay afterwards, before that happens. But I made a mistake once on my ESTA form to get into America, and although I rectified it before I flew, when I landed in America, I was on my honeymoon as well. I was whisked off by a man with a gun and asked a load of questions that I had to answer, and completely genuine mistake. I just typed in the wrong number because I was trying to multitask, and you know how men are with multitasking. But so every time I land in America now, no matter where in America, it's on the system, so I have to kind of get that rectified. But that's by the by. But no, I mean, I don't know if you know, Rob, but they're opening a Disney park in Shanghai. I think the middle of June. Is it? But they're doing a soft opening at the moment, so they've got people out there trying out the park and trying out some of the attractions. The first footage I saw was the ride that interested me the most, and actually going back to a little bit about what you were saying about Test Track. In Shanghai, they haven't got Test Track, but they've got a Tron light cycle ride, which...
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah. Is that that's only in Shanghai right now,
only
right?
in Shanghai, but to be honest, the response has been quite enthusiastic. I think they will bring it to other parks eventually. But you can definitely see some of the Test Track, because Test Track, as you've seen it, was an upgrade they did, about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Before that, it wasn't futuristic at all. It was
crash test dummies, wasn't
pretty
it?
much, yeah. It was pretty much like a crash test centre. And obviously they've now jazzed it all up, so it's all neon and everything like that. But the Tron coaster does look brilliant, and I thought that would be enough. I love Tron, so I thought that'd be enough to make me go. But the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, has anyone seen the video of that?
No.
I was on it. Oh, is there a different one at Shanghai? They have a special version of it?
So, again, what they recently did to Walt Disney World was they added in, I don't know if you noticed, but they added in the animatronics of Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow and Captain Barbossa. In Shanghai, the ride is completely different. So the only thing that's similar really is that you're on a boat, and the boat's on water. But the ride itself is... Sorry.
I was going to say, I bet you the ending's the same. You walk out into a gift shop and then your kids yell, "Hey, I want to buy this."
Oh, but then it wouldn't be a Disney ride, would it? Some things just won't change. But the entire ride story is based on the film franchise more than the... So obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean was a original idea that was worked on by Walt Disney himself. And the films are based on that. So this ride is just based on the film series, with little nods to the original attraction. But it's completely different, and the effects, all the animatronics, are just completely mind blowing just by watching someone's video camera footage of it. So God knows what it's like to experience in real life. But I was one of these people that, because I like the original ride, and I see the film franchise as something completely different, never the twain shall meet. But having seen this new ride, I'd quite like them to bring it to America as well. It's looking very, very...
the Pirates of the Caribbean in the US needs a little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, we're having because obviously our nearest park is Paris, and our one is supposed to be going down for refurb, I think, later on this year. But I think they're only going to improve. They're only going to bring it up to the new bits they've added to the American park. So the little bits they've added from the film franchise. They're not gonna. It's not going to be a new ride. It's going to be little bits added to it. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm keeping my eye on that park. It's definitely got my interest peaked at the moment. That's for sure. So maybe that's the next place we can head to. But Rob, it's coming up to the end of the show. Thank you so much for taking your time out to speak to our little show. If you can just one more time do any plugs that you want, and just let people know how to contact you, if that's okay.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. And for anyone that wants to get a hold of me about podcasting related issues and getting started and any questions, just email me, Rob, R-O-B, at Libsyn.com, Libsyn. And if you're interested in the iPhone, check out my podcast, Today in iOS. So just Today in iOS, if you just search for Today in iOS or iPhone or iPad in iTunes, you'll find it. It's usually the first one listed.
And if you want to host a podcast, Libsyn's a great place to go. So please consider that. And if you wouldn't mind, if you actually listen to this show today and been inspired and you want to actually reach out to Rob, if you wouldn't mind just letting him know that you heard it from us. All right, he's not going to give you anything, I hope. Well, maybe he will, I don't know. But it'd be nice to know that a different audience has appreciated him coming on. And who knows, you might want to come on again. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, but, we plan to go back to Disney World hopefully here in the next 2 years. Probably we'll probably go a 2-year gap. But I want to do one more time. My older son is in 4th grade, so I want to be, when he's in 6th or 7th grade, pull him out of school for a week again and do it. I don't want to pull him out when he gets in high school. So we definitely have to go in the next couple of years.
That's actually been a very contentious thing in the UK this week, actually, because you get fined in the UK for doing that. It varies on where you are in the UK, but if you take your child out of school time, and it's normally to go to Florida as well, funny enough, you do get fined a lot of money, but it's a lot cheaper. You'd normally end up better off if you did that and paid the fine than if you took them out during the holidays, because it's so much cheaper.
It's about £60 a week.
Yeah,
also about
$100. That's nothing. That's nothing. You save if you're going off peak versus peak, you're saving a lot of money.
Yeah, £60 versus like £1,000. It's no comparison. But this guy actually took them to court and won. They said it was unlawful for them to do it, so he didn't get fined at all. The fine got revoked. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because they're talking about trying to look at that particular loophole to see if they can close it off. But I think the simple argument, reduce prices.
Yeah, God forbid a family wants to get together and do something as a family and bond and really secure that whole family structure. Yeah. What are people thinking? Why would they want to do that?
It's just the world we live in now, Rob. It really is. It really is. But thank you once again. Thank you, dear listener, for joining us. As Rob said, if you could be so kind, just go onto iTunes and give us a review. And what we recommend, even if you don't like us, because we've actually read out before on this show good reviews and bad reviews, because we don't mind what they are as long as people comment. But if you could give us a 5-star review, and in that context just slag us off, that's fine. As long as the 5 stars are there, that's the key component. What you say afterwards is fine. But yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rob, for joining us. Been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and
thanks, Rob.
Really interesting for everyone. And we'll see you in about a week's time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rob. Thanks for coming on. It's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yep, thanks.
All right, gentlemen.
It's great.
Thank you so much for having me on, and gentlemen, have a great evening.
Thank you.